Hi, welcome to Munch and Mend. This is a video about the reason that I finally reached out for a final go at treatment and decided to fully commit and let go of my eating disorder. And that was losing my mum to cancer. A lot of people may wonder how losing my mum actually did the opposite to what they thought, and helped me to let go and finally reach a recovery from my eating disorder. It did nearly send me the other way, where I was kind of done and, I could have let it pull me down. So I'll explain that soon. But what really helped me was the shock, I think, of losing someone really made me see how short life is. And on top of that, I promised her and my dad, my brother, and my then fiance, who's now my husband, we all promised each other that we would look after each other. And I wanted to fulfill that wish and I wanted to be there for the rest of my family. My mum was a very special lady. She was always my biggest champion. She was always there for me and she always wanted the best for me, and it meant that the one thing she always wanted was for me to recover and, free myself from this eating disorder. You may have seen already in some of my other videos that my mum actually struggled with an eating disorder. So she knew the, mental torture and just how difficult life with an eating disorder is. So that is why she wanted me to recover, because she didn't want me living with that ball and chain around my neck for the rest of my life. My mum was always really proud of how far I'd come, even though I lived a life still in an eating disorder and still with quite severe symptoms from my bulimia. Mum got diagnosed with lung cancer in, I think it was April or May 2020. So this was kind of early stages of COVID. Now, at that stage, I had just been in a very sort of extreme phase of purging anorexia, where I'd lost a significant amount of weight, and it had kind of got me again and hooked me and was pulling me down. So, oh gosh, I remember her sitting on the bed and just saying to me, I can't do this again. I can't watch you, just sort of fade away again. And it was just, when I look back now, the eating disorder was so poisonous that that didn't kind of make me turn it around. It was after COVID and had started, and I think I just realised that, and people were telling me because of my physical health I was at more risk of, if I did get COVID, and that sort of helped me stabilise myself. And then shortly after my mum's cancer diagnosis, I wanted to get well and, restore the weight to help her and to, to so that she could see that I was managing and that I was doing well. Unfortunately, though, when she passed away, I was still struggling very much with bulimia, which just goes to show how evil eating disorders are. That I knew that the one thing she wanted more than anything in the world and would have meant the most to her was me getting well and recovering. And this just shows how powerful eating disorders are, that I couldn't even fulfill that one dying wish that I could give her. Losing my mum nearly sent me the other way. My eating disorder loved the fact that I was vulnerable. I was very distressed and grieving, and it so wanted to get its claws into me and pull me down that road again. But not only did I want to be there for my family, but my husband had asked me to marry him at that time, and we had planned a wedding that she was supposed to be at in the September, and we lost her in the April. And I remember her saying to me and my dad that getting married to Darren meant everything to her, because that was the one last thing that I needed in my life to get all these things that I never thought I'd have. So getting to the wedding, I had to focus on that after we lost her, because she promised me that she knew the time and the date and she'd be there looking over us and she'd be at the wedding. So I had to try and keep myself stable so that I could get to that, because that wedding had to happen at that time and that date, because she was going to be there, and I knew it would have meant everything to her, and it did mean everything to her. So like I said before, losing my mum, it was very, very easy, and I nearly did slip back into my eating disorder like full pelt. It was close to kind of escalating, and obviously I was getting these urges more, the urges to lose weight, and just to try and numb all these feelings. However, like I said before, the wedding, marrying my husband, knowing that that was one of her dying wishes, was for that to happen, I had to keep going. I think what was putting me back, and this is how toxic eating disorders are, was I felt responsible for her dying. I was like, I've taken my mum away from my brother, I've taken my dad, his wife, away. And what sort of made me feel that way was because she passed away of lung cancer, and then liver cancer as well. It sort of progressed there. And to me, what my eating disorder was telling me was, you spent years putting your mum through the stress with your eating disorder. And one of my mum's go-to was smoking and alcohol. And I know that that kind of escalated, and she did it a lot more to cope with the stress of my illness and the worry with me. So my toxic, manipulative, vindictive eating disorder was trying to convince me that I had killed my mum, basically. And it was very easy to go down that route. But then I think I thought, I had this realisation: one, life is short; two, I need to be there for my family; and three, recovering is all she ever wanted for me. And I have to do it for her, but for me as well, because she wanted me to do it for me, so that I could be free from, this ball and chain around my neck, and, this tainted life that revolves around food, weight and shape. Fortunately, I was able to kind of turn it around, and I was like, no, I've got to do this now. It's now or never. But because I'd kind of been written off by medical professionals, I'd go for my psychiatric appointments every 3 months or what have you, and I'd tell them how bad I was struggling with my eating disorder. But because I was working full time, holding my own, and because I wasn't feeling like I wanted to harm myself, and I wasn't suicidal, they just kind of palmed it off. It was like, that was me, and that was my destiny, was living with sort of bulimia and, purging anorexia intermittently, and and that was it. I was, and there was never any, even though I'd say how distressed I was with the symptoms, I'd say how, I can't live like this, I want to, it was never mentioned really going back to the eating disorder service and getting re-referred. Out of desperation and, wanting this final chance at treatment, I decided to pay for a private gastroenterologist appointment. And I went in there, I explained to him about my battle over the years, that, when I first got poorly, Mum took me to the doctors to get help, and, it wasn't recognising children back then. And, you know, we were sent away with Prozac and yeah, that's an antidepressant for people that don't know. And yeah, no diagnosis, no treatment. So I never got any proper help for it. And that was one thing that really bothered my mum a lot because she felt that if I'd, you know, managed to get treatment early on, and this is why I fight for early intervention, and this is part of the reason I'm doing this as well, because she just, you know, it just really upset her that, you know, there could have been this chance that I could have got help and it would have spared me years of dedicating my life to this disease. So when I was in the appointment with the gastroenterologist, I explained my desperation. At this point, I realised my bulimia and my purging, a lot of it was an addiction. I'd, you know, done therapy for many years, and, you know, I'd worked through like all the things, the emotional things that worried me or stressed me out. And don't get me wrong, there were still some final things that I needed to sort of deal with. But ultimately, I knew my purging and my eating disorder was very much an addiction and a habit, and I needed to break that cycle of like the constant and repeated purging that had just become so easy at that point. So I asked him if he could tube feed me for a month to break that cycle, because it was so habitual and it was so you know, second nature. After I'd eaten, I'd end up in the toilet without even almost realising it, like an automatic response. And if failing that, I asked him, could he do an operation that I would pay for, that would make it really hard to induce vomiting, because it had become so easy. Unfortunately, he said he couldn't do either. The operation, obviously, because well, apparently it could affect my ability to swallow from that point onwards, so it could have a lot of complications. But also the tube feeding, he decided he wanted to see me like under the NHS, and that I think he was worried that I wouldn't have the money to continue the treatment privately, and then it would just have to stop and I'd be left, you know, high and dry without any support at that point. So he asked for me to go to my doctor and get them to refer me to him, you know, at the the hospital, local hospital under the NHS, and that is what happened. And yeah, it was from him sending me to a dietitian that then sent me to the eating disorder service that got me in and got me that help, and was able to finally let it go, commit to the meal plan, commit to the, you know, the therapy, and, you know, really work hard to break these habits, break these cycles, and do what I needed to do and should have done many years ago. Not only do I regret recovering after my mum passed away, so she never got to see me recovered or where I am today, I also regret the fact that I had my eating disorder like up to that point, because not having it and seeing myself now, how much time I've got, how I can engage, how much happier I am. You know, a lot of the time I dedicated my life and my time to my eating disorder when I could have been spending quality time with my mum. Yeah, but instead, you know, my eating disorder came first, and we missed out on plenty of time that we could have, and memories we could have made, you know, not even knowing that I was going to lose her when she was sort of 67, 68. You know, we could have, yeah, I mean, life is short and we've got to make the most of the people that we care about. But like I said before, my mum, she lived for her children, me and my brother. She would do anything for us. And she said she'd die for us, you know, because we meant everything to her. So losing her and me reaching a recovery, it's almost like she saved me in a roundabout, ironic way. She saved my life, and I know she was one of the most unselfish people that I know, who put us first. And I know she wouldn't have it any other way. And losing her and her death you know, if there was one thing to come out of it, you know, she'd be so happy that I finally did it. And I finally granted her wish and my wish, you know, and been free and able to live my life. And this is why I'd say to people, don't ever, ever give up on yourself. If you know, don't lose hope. You never know when something in life might change and you see your eating disorder for what it really is. And yeah, and you just retaliate and you fight back and you put it in its grave. So yeah, please, please keep fighting. If you can, let go of it, because it's not worth it. You know, I just wish I had more time with my mum. She could have seen me like this and we could have spent more quality time together, other than me, you know, spending it binging, purging and, you know, putting my eating disorder ahead of everything else. So yeah, please join me in recovery, keep fighting and never give up.